So let's get Taylor Lorenz on the call here, who's been waiting patiently, and we will. There she is. Hi, Taylor.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry to keep you waiting.
Oh no, it's all good. I'm here.
So, thank you for joining us.
And thank you for writing this article. I think
Yeah.
it's great.
Tell me, what was the process first of identifying like, oh, I want to write this article about Jake and Team 10 and all this?
Well, I had been looking into this article for over a month. I started talking to Justine before she put her video out on YouTube
Oh.
or anything. So basically, I mean, Jake has been in the news a lot because he is now obviously raised a fresh venture fund. I think this is like his third time trying to raise a venture fund. And then obviously the boxing and all that, he's just gaining a lot of inroads in the business world. And, from the New York Times, that's really interesting because we want to look at the business and power behind these creators. And I had written a lot about the Team 10 house back in the day. And, obviously Thomas Petru and other people were involved with Team 10 that are part of these houses like Hype House and stuff. And there's just all these kids that want to move into these houses and be like Jake Paul. So I just kind of started to look into, the world that he built and what it was like for that first generation of kids that moved into, these collab houses.
How did you find this boy who was 14? Did you? Because I never saw him. I didn't even know about him. I was really surprised to hear his story. How did you connect with him?
Yeah, well, I began reaching back out to people who were there from the first days, like the early days of Team 10. So back in 2016, when Jake raised money, Team 10, let's not forget, investors backed Team 10.
Right.
They put a lot of money behind it. It wasn't just Jake's money. He doesn't usually spend his own money. He can help it. So I started reaching back out to people, but I had gotten basically connected with him through a mutual connection who said that he was ready to talk. And I remembered him because he was 14 and then Alex Lange was like 15. There was a bunch of like really young people when Jake launched that first version of Team 10. Obviously, Team 10 cycled through so many people over the years.
How is it that investors were okay backing up such a project that has no accountability for anything? They're clearly not taking care of the kids. And then it was all easy to see that they're up to no good. They were always in the news, getting into trouble with the neighborhood. Weird.
I know. I mean, I was there the day that, when that reporter showed up and Jake Paul was wreaking havoc and everything. I think the issue is that, it's two things. I mean, one, there are these really toxic investors and men in Silicon Valley that I think see themselves in Jake Paul. They don't give they don't give a care in the world to the stuff that he's done. And then there's a lot of people that I think are just kind of vaguely ignorant or they don't really care. Like Jake still has reach. And one thing that's been really interesting, I'm sure you guys have seen, but in the past year, there's just been so much attention from Silicon Valley on the sort of quote unquote creator world where they're just desperate to back these people. They like just discovered that people are big on YouTube suddenly, I think, and they don't really know who to back. And so they go Google, YouTube star and they see Jake Paul and they're like, oh, okay, I guess he's popular. Maybe their kids watch him.
I find it interesting. There seems to be no due diligence. I mean, these are investors.
Yeah.
They know something about due diligence. That's their whole world, right? They need to thoroughly investigate where they're putting their money. I'm sure investigating like a company is a lot harder than looking up that Jake Paul is a problematic person, to put it mildly. I find that interesting. And even now, like you said, he's just raised another.
From some of the most powerful people in Silicon Valley. I mean,
Wow.
Mark Andreessen and Chris Dixon personally put money into this fund. They personally put money in. This is after Jake spent, all last year partying during COVID saying it's a hoax, among other things. It's not like it's a secret that Jake is toxic. But, I will say the good investors do due diligence. I mean, and, at least, David Dobrik, met with other VC funds and they watched, I think, 2 of his videos and were like, this is a liability.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is interesting because before all this stuff came to light, David Dobrik was, I think, considered. Obviously, his content was mature, but like non-controversial.
I think it's just like it depends on the investor's risk too. Like some of these investors are more risk prone. I think the ones that don't get it, actually, it's really shocking from the outside. Like I think that we watch a lot of pranks. We've seen David Dobrik's videos over there. It's almost normalized to us. But I think if you have an older guy that's not really online, look at it, it's like, ooh, that just looks like drama or liability or someone's going to get hurt. Or,
Right.
What's interesting to me? It seems like all of these investments, not what has panned out from these investments. Dispo is in flames. Jake Paul, Team 10, I don't think they ever made money from that. Why do people even keep giving creators money? Because I haven't seen any evidence of a huge return.
I think because they see creators themselves making a lot of money. So they're trying to find a way in on this.
And Jake Paul had an app too. I don't know if you guys remember Locker Room, his social media app that he tried that kept men and women separate, which...
Whoa, no, I don't remember that. And then you just reminded me of another one of Jake Paul's ventures, which was basically more or less a scam where he was selling how to be an influencer. You remember that?
That was short-lived.
So it's like none of his ventures have been successful. So I just like with a track record like that, and then all of the toxic behavior, it surprised me that anyone will give him money.
I think it's like a way to. I think it's a signaling, right? Like I think that like these investors like Mark Andreessen, Chris Dixon that are putting their personal money in there, I think it's a way to kind of be like, yeah, I'm supporting this guy. Like I'm cool. Like,
oh, really?
I think that they I think they know he's problematic. They don't care.
Yeah, sure. I think.
But listen to I don't know how much you guys talked about this, but Charlie and Dixie and a ton of people were out promoting his fight just last weekend on TikTok. Like there's a lot of people that don't care or don't see.
Yeah, well, I think it's all about public perception with these kinds of things where it's like, look, there's a fight with him and it's a huge event, so it must be fine. Yeah. I don't think these people think about it too much. Is there anything I left out? I'm assuming you were watching when I was reading about the article. Was there anything that I left out that you thought was important to mention?
Yeah, I kind of cut out for part of it, so I'm not sure if you mentioned, but I just want to say that, the New York Times fact-checking process is incredibly intense. And, it's a long process. We started talking to Justine a long time ago, far before she ever went to the press, or before she ever posted her video. And, I interviewed other people, including people that were there, that corroborated her account of events. We really do due diligence. So I think sometimes people see things and they take it as just like a drama, or that person's just saying stuff. And it's like, this was a really long process. There was a lot that came out. There was a lot that didn't even make it in there that I'm sure will end up on the internet. But I think, it was intense.
So what do you think about Keemstar's defense that that she should have just closed her mouth?
Closed her mouth.
Why? I love how he prefaces something with I don't really know what's going on,
exactly.
But I didn't even read the full article, but here's what I think. I think that's so incredibly offensive. And also to say that these women didn't say no or make it clear that it was unacceptable is also just counterfactual. These women do say no. Right. And Jake Paul is a boxer. He's a big, intimidating person. It's not like, you were saying, women are not always in this position. And I have to say, it's very brave and unusual for Justine to come out. I think she really gave a very measured account on the video, but I spoke to her at length, and her sole motivation was just to kind of prevent this from happening to other women. And that's really why she wanted to talk about it. She doesn't care about the investors or whatever. She just doesn't want other women to have to go through what she went through. And
that's something we've touched on before, which is one of these unfortunate side effects of dealing with something like this as a victim is that now all of a sudden, not only have you been a victim and you have to hold the trauma of that, but now you may feel as a victim that you have now all of a sudden this responsibility because you need to
let other people
know. And it's so not only are they committing this crime on you, but now they're giving you guilt associated with having to speak up and prevent it from happening from other people.
It's so messed up. And I also just hope that more, reporters in the mainstream media cover this stuff. I think a lot of stuff gets written up as like drama. Like I was just looking at some of the press when Justine first put her piece out, and it's framed as like drama coverage. And like, these
It's a crime.
It's a crime, and it's serious, and it should be covered that way. And so I hope that that kind of can be reframed.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Yeah, I think people get too caught up with exactly like you said, where if it's on the internet, it's YouTube drama.
Or because she chose to tell her story on YouTube. I mean, we knew that she was going to publish that before our story would come out, because our story was taking a while, and she, I think, really wanted to speak out on it, also just in her own voice. But it's like, just because you choose YouTube to tell your story doesn't mean that it's YouTube drama. It just, that's a platform for you to have a voice, and for her to say stuff that she could never say in an article. The article can only be so long, right? Like, she really wants to tell everything so that there's no question. So
it's interesting how there's almost like a built-in defense when people like Jake, they invite a girl like her who's like a small influencer. And so no matter what she ever says, they have this built-in defense that she's just clout chasing.
Yeah.
That's like what you always hear from everyone is, oh, they're just doing this for clout. Is that a thing? What does it mean to clout chase as a victim? Is that something that you can gain clout from?
It's not a thing.
Right.
No, you don't get any clout from it. I mean, I can tell you, as somebody that's reported on a lot of horrible stuff over the years, the people who experience this stuff usually just have lasting trauma, and it's harder for them. They're not going to get brand deals as easily. They're sort of forever synonymous with this horrible event on the internet. It's very hard for them to change their image. They obviously get so much hate from people like Keemstar that are questioning their situation with no understanding of what's going on. And so it's really hard it's so, like, clout chasing is just such an idiotic way to frame something like that. And it also like puts him on this pedestal where I think if you're saying, oh, this person's clout chasing, then you're acknowledging that you are in a position of power with this person. And like, I mean, I think that's almost telling on yourself a little bit.
Interesting. That's very true. Yeah. Well, I agree.
I hope that more women speak out too, and I hope that the media can cover it more. Like, I hope that more women consider going to like reporters and stuff, because I will say that, like, vetting it and speaking to the other people, like speaking to her friends, speaking to people that were like familiar with the situation, that saw her, crying afterwards and stuff. Like, there's just a lot that I think it's like hard for people to get when she tells her own story, but I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
and it unfortunately gets taken, like you said, as drama when you don't really speak to a reporter. But if you go to a reporter, then it's like a serious story for some reason.
Yeah.
And also just like the adults in the room, like pay attention to it. Like, I think that like the CMO of Target or whatever might not see your YouTube video, but they'll certainly know if you talk to the New York Times or whatever. That's not to say you shouldn't do both. You can do both. You can put stuff on the internet and you can talk to the media.
Yeah.
Well, when I first saw Justine's video, I was like, wow, I never heard anyone really describe their assault in such detail before. And I thought from the beginning that she was being really brave and coming forward. And she immediately got hate from a lot of people like Keemstar and other people online. And I think it's brave, and I'm glad that there are people in the New York Times and such established organizations that are willing to examine these kinds of things and to acknowledge that it's not like new. It's not, people don't take this realm so seriously, but now all of a sudden, there's serious actors here, like with all that Jake Paul is doing and the venture capital and the boxing, and these are big players now all of a sudden, and they need to be treated as such.
Definitely. I mean, Insider's done a great job with that as well. I know they covered like all the Jeffree Star stuff too.
Right.
Like, I mean, these people are running $1 million businesses in some cases, like some of these creators and these investors. And so I think hopefully more reporters will look into it and more people will also come forward with stuff. But it just sucks. It sucks that these people have to deal with these haters on the internet, because it's like, it's a lot of like 9-year-olds too that just have no idea.
Right, of course.
Right.
Yeah. Of course. Well, Taylor, thank you for sharing with us. Thank you for calling in and helping us understand all this. And Keep up the good work. I'm a fan of yours. I follow you.
Oh, likewise. Well,
Been
thanks
following
for,
you for a
always
while.
covering all this stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you, Taylor. Taylor Lorenz on, that's just your handle, right, on Twitter?
Yep.
We'll put a link in the description if you guys want to follow Taylor on Twitter. She's always bringing scoops and news. So we'll put that in the description. Thank you, Taylor. Thank you for calling in.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Appreciate it.
Bye. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. Oh, was that delayed? Or she? Okay.
There we go.
I think that was an really interesting point she says about the clout
I think the more
chasing.
people, oh yeah, that was really good.
Yeah.
point. Like, when have you ever seen a famous victim that like became famous?
What,
from,
Dan?
When I was hanging up on her, I think I accidentally reported her to Zoom
What?
for like crap.
Oh no.
Good job, Dan.
So sorry,
Thanks
Taylor.
for
If
coming
you
on.
get
We just
banned.
reported you to Zoom.
Thank you, Dan.
I hope you don't get banned or something. I don't know how that works.
Dan is going to be okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ela. What were you saying?
That like if that was a thing, you would have like people who became famous just from being a victim of.
Oh, yeah. That has never happened. Justine Paradise famously made her big break from her
Yeah.
accusations against Jake
need that
Paul
clout.
in 2021.
Yeah.
Since then, she's skyrocketed to fame.
Yeah, doesn't work that way.
There you go. Taylor Lorenz, everybody. Yeah, it's pretty amazing that you can be such a like all of his tech ventures have been such colossal failures.
I'm actually surprised that he's still
Failing
all
up,
these
baby.
investors.
It's the best way to get ahead in this
Well,
country.
he continues to make money for himself, but I don't see any of his investment opportunities panning out. I wouldn't give Jake Paul a fucking, even if he was in talks, I wouldn't give him a fucking dollar.
Oh, man.
I can turn your $1 into zero by the end of the year, guaranteed. Look at my track record.
I mean, the fight did bring in a lot of money.
Yeah, but they're
Yeah.
not
Sure.
investing in the fight. That's Jake Paul's money.
Right. He's the investor in that case. You're right.
Yeah, nobody's benefiting from that except Jake. I mean, that's just his, just his direct creator opportunities. It's like, yeah, Jake makes a lot of money, but that's the money he makes for doing his fucking shtick.
Right.
Nobody's cutting you in on that action. Anyway, that's Jake Paul for you, with a little spice of Keemstar's a douche, which is always a nice spice to sprinkle on any meal.